Agenda is approved. We do have to approve the minutes of July 27th, the draft minutes. Everybody's gotten those. If there are any changes or corrections, so let us know. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gonzalez, seconded by Pacheco. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And that passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our non-consent business, which are reports of standing committees. Welcome, Councilmember Lilligren.
Thank you, sorry.
Oh, no, we just thought we'd just keep going, so glad you're here. We've got one item under non-consent, and that's item 2022-206. It's basic and supplemental life insurance services. And we've got Terry Bope, our benefits manager, that's going to be speaking to that today. So welcome, Terry. Great to see you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Terry Bope, benefits manager, here to present business item 2022-206 regarding our basic and supplemental life insurance services, contract 22P085. This contract will provide basic and supplemental life insurance services, and it will be providing services to our active eligible employees and our retired eligible employees for a term of 5 years. We did issue a request for proposal back in April, and we held a pre-proposal meeting which was attended with quite a few interested proposers. There were 7 registered plan holders, 5 contractors, 2 plan rooms. None of the plan holders identified as minority, women, small, veteran, or disadvantaged business enterprises. As I stated, we did have lots of interest in this RFP. And in the end, we received 4 proposals from 4 of the top leading industry providers of life insurance in the nation. The proposals were evaluated based on quality, qualifications, experience, price, and the ability to meet current and future needs. Our evaluation panel reached consensus that the proposal submitted by Minnesota Life Securian was the most advantageous to the council and is recommending for award. Rationale is that the execution of a professional service contract exceeding $500,000 requires council approval. Authorization to enter into this basic and life insurance services contract supports the Thrive outcome of stewardship. Funding for the basic life insurance, those services are considered in each division's operating budget. Funding for supplemental life insurance is provided through employee payroll deductions. The Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity reviewed this procurement for MCUB opportunities, but no MCUB goals were set. Proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 22P085 with Minnesota Life Securian to provide basic and supplemental life insurance services in an amount not to exceed $8,250,000. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions there might be.
Thank you, Terry. Are there any questions? Anything? Yeah. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Just a couple of questions. This is more for my information. So this is for 5 years. So the last time we did this process was 5 years ago?
Yes, Madam Chair, Council Member. Last time we did an RFP was 5 years ago. So we are reaching, at the end of December would be the end of the current 5-year period contract. Yes.
So it will not be fair to compare the price back then and now. I mean, so many years have happened, but is there any savings or how much more?
Madam Chair, council members, the good news about this RFP after 5 years And of course, what we do when we issue the RFP with, of course, guidance and help from contracts and procurement, when we issue the RFP, and we did have help also from our benefits consultant, we are very transparent as an organization, and we provide the redacted, of course, private data, but it does show aggregate information related to claims history for 5 years, so that the proposers are not just, having to go blindly into bidding on the contract on Met Council. So they see current enrollment, so they know volume, and they know claims history. And the good news about this round of RFP is, I will say that every one of the proposals actually came in at a lower premium than our current carrier has now. And that includes the recommended carrier, Minnesota Life Securian. So very good question, and again, it was a positive outcome then on this RFP.
That's good news. One quick additional question is, how many folks are enrolled total?
Madam Chair, member of the committee, we have 4,200 active employees, and basic life insurance is generally part of every one of our bargaining unit contracts. So that is automatic and employer covered benefit. And then our retiree population with the life insurance basic benefit is about 2,000.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions. Anything else? All right, seeing none, our proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 22P085 with Minnesota Life Securian to provide basic and supplemental life insurance services in the amount not to exceed $8,250,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Lilligren. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Barber. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Great work. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our information items. We're going to continue on with the recaps for our 2021-22 Equity Thrive projects. And who do we have up? Where did we leave off, I guess is a better way of saying it. Welcome. Let me just get my, oops, no, I lost my online agenda. Great.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jerry Sutton, and I'm here to present the MTS project for regional fleet zero emission buses. Kind of plan to move forward on those efforts. This project is really an extension of the zero emission plan that was completed by Metro Transit in early 2022. We are using the same consultant, Comm, to study the MTS owned fleet, which currently includes 1,142 revenue fleet of all sizes, ranging from sedans and small buses, like those used on Metro Mobility, to 40-foot and MCI coaches, some of which are operated by the suburban providers. The MTS fleet and service model present some different considerations than those studied with the Metro Transit plan, to include 11 of 15 garages that are either owned or leased by our contractors, and also considerations around the small bus market readiness situation. The total cost of the study is expected to be just short of $140,000, and we will be completed by February of 2023. MTS has provided requested data to the consultants, and the work is well underway. There's no spend against this project to date, but we are confident that it will be fully spent by the end of 2022. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you for that report. Does the committee have any questions? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you mentioned that we'll be looking at the facilities for our contracted providers, but are we looking at facilities for the suburban providers as well?
Madam Chair, Committee Member Barber, yes, we are. Yes, they are fully involved in development of this plan. The consultant will be meeting with each of them to talk about what they're looking at.
I'm sure they're very excited about this. We've have the policymaker group meeting that we have with the suburban providers, and this comes up often because they knew we had done it and they were wanting to know how this would get expanded. So I'm sure they're very happy to hear.
Are there any other questions? I have one just to piggyback on Councilmember Barbara's comments. Is it possible to, I'm sure you'll be working with the lead transit provider or transit leader at, in the suburban transit cities. It'd be really nice, and maybe we can express this to STA and the elected officials that this is taking place, because I can honestly say, sometimes the elected officials don't get to always hear or know in a timely way, and that's no fault of anybody, it's just kind of the way information rolls out in some of these types of things. But I think it'd be super great for those leaders in the local communities, whether it's the city manager and then the electeds, to know about this too. And for many of them, they'll have an election coming up, so for sure with those new council members that are being seated in mayors. Councilmember Barber.
Madam Chair, with that, so Jerry, we have a meeting with them on Monday, so even just a snapshot that we could have some background to provide to the electeds would be helpful.
Perfect, thank you. Anything else? All right. And then, thank you very much, appreciate that, Jerry. Next up is our maintenance technician training program, which is super cool. So we have got Abel?
Nope.
Nope, I was gonna say you all.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
council members. I'm John DeMore, acting
Welcome,
acting director of bus maintenance.
Thank
Abel
you.
was unable to be here today. The maintenance technician training program, we have filed and registered the apprenticeship application is under review with the state of Minnesota. I think that we're expecting to hear back late this week. Looks like everything's gonna be approved. Management and ATU have been reviewing and going through the expectations and developing the minimum standards for education and experience required to complete the apprenticeship program. It'll be a 3-year program, and they will be on completion there'll be a card number for registered technician in the bus maintenance program. Workforce development is finalizing the recruitment process for getting people to apply for the program. That should be completed late this month, early next month. The program will be 14 people, seven from internal applicants within bus maintenance or rail. There's options for drivers and other individuals to apply for the program. To date, right now, we have placed orders for laptops for all the technicians. You can see the cost of that is around $15,000, and then the tools for the program for the use during the apprenticeship are in the process of being ordered. And it's very expensive. Tools are very expensive, $150,000. And then the recruitment and empowerment training for workforce development, there's earmarked of $15,000 for that also. And with that, if there's any questions for me.
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members? Councilmember
Just a
Barber?
quick comment, I just think this is great. I think that, this is something, really building a true apprenticeship and doing it for the technicians, I think is really just gonna help us as an organization, and I think it's really, really thoughtful approach to this.
No, it's hard to hire qualified people, and it's a nice opportunity to train with it.
Great. Anything else? The only thing I would say is, as this unfolds, it'd be interesting to continue to hear how that recruitment process went, how readily people were coming into the program, especially from the public. I know our internal candidates are in the know, but and then at the end too, just what diversity we were able to bring into this, especially again from internal but external as well, because of course is one of the goals. So.
I know from we've had internships in the past that we've had a lot of participation.
Good.
So they're a very diverse group of people.
Anything else? Councilmember Gonzalez.
Just one quick question. I was just wondering about why the need to have the Department of Labor and Industry approve this?
It's a registered apprenticeship program through the state of Minnesota. They have to approve it, yeah.
Is that because they're gonna get a license?
Yes, they will be registered, once they complete the program, they will be a card holding,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Great. Councilmember Lilly?
Yeah, thanks. And I agree with Councilmember Barber. I think this is just a very cool programming. One question, do we have enough experience with past apprenticeship programs, or can we make a fairly good guess of those 14 participants, how many of them will actually end up working for Metro Transit?
I know in our previous internship programs, we only had really lost like 2 throughout the program. So, I mean, it was a pretty high success rate.
Thanks, thank you.
And I don't know if there's an opportunity, but I'd just like to thank ATU too for their participation in this. I know there was some discussion early on as this was kind of coming together, and I really appreciate the partnership so that we can get this right, whatever that means, right? We need everybody to be on board, no pun intended, because it's just gonna be a better program if everybody's, got their thoughts and fingerprints into this thing and our stakeholders. So I think the outcomes will be better. So thank you to all the partners, including ATU.
I will let them know.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your leadership on this. All right, our next item is expanding multicultural marketing reach and frequency. Welcome. You're definitely not Bruce Howard.
I'm not
so-
Bruce Howard. Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Jessica Cross. I work in marketing over in Metro Transit. And I was actually the manager of 3 of these 4 endeavors. So I'll be able to answer questions that you have. So the first thing that we completed was a BIPOC focus group. We worked with our ad agency, CCF, and they partnered with Dynasty Media. They are affiliated with the Minnesota Spokesman Reporter, but they also they're generating lots of relationships with influencers and contacts across communities. So they were able to help us find enough people in a number of demographics to answer some questions for us. And so that was completed this is July, it was actually July, August by the time we got enough responses. And so that was just about better understanding what people are looking at for their news, information, entertainment, things like that. And so we could use that information going forward with media buys. So the next thing we did, I'm going to go out of order because the next thing we did was use that information to run an MCUB marketing campaign. So it was 6 vendors to run these ads that included radio and digital and email. And so we ran that in November and December, and we actually saw hits to the website initially double in November and then almost double again in December. So it was impactful. It definitely got the word out. We can't really track, how that results in the number of EdCom vendors because obviously they get certified by other, certifications, and then we sort of aggregate those vendors. So, but it definitely piqued interest in the program and got the word out. And then at the beginning of this year, we established contracts with 10 different BIPOC media vendors and basically said to them, $10,000, give us a proposal. And sometimes that'll buy you space for all year long. But sometimes if it's more expensive, they'll say, okay, you can run 3 campaigns. So, they're spaced out in different ways. But one other things that we were able to do buying an entire year of media is that we could work on an editorial calendar and really be thoughtful about the kinds of information or campaigns that would be of interest very broadly. So we ran another MCUB campaign, Adopt a Stop. We're running some TAP right now. And then, what am I forgetting? Summer Student Pass. And then coming up, we'll be promoting that tech training program, our translated resources, and then another MCUB campaign. And then the last was a creative services collaboration projects, funds. 2 projects are done, 1 is still coming up. The next slide is an example of of the campaign we did for Juneteenth. Oh, do I need to do that?
Maybe. For a little,
What am I
there we go.
doing? There we go. So this is, these were, I believe, 4 different illustrations. And we worked with a local BIPOC illustrator. And so these were on Ultra Super Kings. If you don't know, they're the bus ads that are on the side and they go top to bottom. So they're almost like rolling billboards. So we had 16 of those, and then also one of those buses was parked at the Juneteenth event, which we partnered with to provide free rides. And we were also there exhibiting, and we had this bus there, and the artist was there as well. So does anybody have any questions?
very cool. Any questions, comments? Well, first of all, I'm really glad you're starting to spend the money already.
Oh, yeah,
I'd love
well,
to see
and
that. I
it's
mean,
all
everybody's
spoken
gonna
for.
spend it, but you're
It's all
already,
spoken for,
you're
it's
in
just we
action.
haven't been
Yeah,
billed
yeah.
yet.
Yeah, I just think this is really a very comprehensive approach to it, and you've got, I think, the right partners in it, helping to, like you said, put that editorial calendar together and get reach, and then just doing these cool events, and hopefully, as we kind of hear how it's all going and get recaps, it'll be just really great to see what the results are, so. Anything else on this? Councilmember Lilligren?
Ms. Cross, thanks for the report and for the work, congratulations. I was trying to figure out how to ask this as a question, but I can't, so I'm just gonna make a statement. But I know that, looking at the 10 contracts that we have with BIPOC Media, and just to observe that those continue to yield sort of beyond just that campaign, right? And having that relationship with BIPOC Media reverberates through the communities that they're most focused in. And so I just want to really commend you for that work.
Yeah, we don't think it's just about number of eyeballs, but really, sort of having a broad, touch points with communities, and that we really, as a public service, we have a responsibility to get the word out to everybody as best we can.
Thanks, Ms. Cross. I'm Manager, and I'll say when organizations don't make these kind of investments in BIPOC media, that's noticed as well, and that kind of reverberates more negatively through the community. So, good job.
And I think to your point too, it's authentic, it's heartfelt, and it's an investment that we are excited, as representatives throughout this region to be partnering. So it's not a gesture or a notion, it's an all-in, I think, is what we're trying to get to. So thank you, great work. And we have our light rail vehicle technician pathway program, another really great one.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members, Ed Meyer, rail training. The update to our pathway program is we've been meeting bi-weekly with our ATU partners. We formed a joint apprenticeship committee. We've used the bus program that's in review with the state as our kind of our baseline, so we're building off of that and working out some different rail specifics. The funding requested is to hire an FTE to support the program. We're mirroring the senior technical trainer position on the bus side, so that's in final HR review. We anticipate that will be completed next week with posting for the position, and hopefully recruitment done by the end of September, or that position on board. With that, that's where we're at with the program, so I'll take any questions if there are any.
Great, does the committee have any questions? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Just a quick one, so to apply for this, you already, do you need to be a Metro Transit employee already, or this is people from the general community can be part of this?
Yeah, Madam Chair, committee member, this program is going to be designed initially for, to make the framework, and that's part of the agreement is stipulating with the ATU, those guidelines for choosing the participants. Eventually, we would like to branch out outside of Metro Transit and provide opportunities, so.
Any other questions, Councilmember Barber?
Just a follow-up comment, just sort of with the general theme of some of the other comments I had on the earlier one. It's just so good that we're building these programs because getting the right kind of training, the right kind of workforce, and I think we provide a great workplace, and then when you've got that, but then provide skills so people have these good, high quality jobs. It's just such a valuable thing, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have just one last one. How many positions or people participating in the pathway program do we think we'll have again? I can't remember.
Madam Chair, so that's what we're working out in these meetings hopefully, but we'd like to keep it small. The first go around rails quite a bit smaller than the bus maintenance side, so we're thinking probably 3 internal candidates, if we could, just to prove out, the model and the program, so.
Yeah. Sure. And again, thank you to ATU. Again, another one where early on, how's this gonna work, blah, 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 but getting the right people around the table and working together, we're gonna have really great results. And again, like this and the other program, it'd be nice to meet the graduates or when they get their, card or credentials, whatever it is. I mean, it'd be nice to meet them and congratulate them at the Met Council or even at this committee level if that's possible, so.
Absolutely.
It'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, appreciate it, great work. And I think that's it then on our review. So thank you to everybody who stretched over 2 meetings to come and bring this information forward. And thank you, Deputy Administrator Gonzalez, for making sure that we have this information coming to us on somewhat of a regular basis so we know how things are going. I appreciate that. All right, so let's move on now. We're gonna get, this is exciting. Mark Thompson's here, Director of Treasury, our investment review. I always love these. Maybe not so much as in the past, but it's still really good.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, welcome.
Yes, council members. I hope it's exciting. We'll see what you think once we get into it. But I'm Mark Thompson, Director of Treasury, and I'm here to present an investment review for the second quarter. And I've got probably about a dozen slides. We'll talk a little bit about the economy and interest rates, and then we'll talk about each of the 3 different portfolios we have. So am I doing the slides or somebody? So just some themes. I think you're probably all familiar with these and what was happening during the second quarter. Inflation, we all know about that. That continued to get higher and higher each month, and we'll talk about that. Hit record levels in June. We got some new information this morning on inflation. I'll talk about that. We'll cover a little bit about interest rates and the Fed. As you know, they're increasing interest rates at a really fast pace right now, and talk about how that affects our portfolios. We'll touch on some GDP numbers and the recession fears around that. And then we'll talk about the equity market, stock market. So that affects our OPEB portfolio. So quickly, inflation, you all are familiar with this probably. This is the chart of the Consumer Price Index. It's a commonly used inflation measure. You can see it just kept on the right side of the chart. There's the last 3 months of the second quarter. 8.3% in April, 8.6 in May, 9.1 in June.
Is it true that July eased up a little bit?
Yes, so thank you for that.
Always have to end on a positive.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. There's good news.
Yeah.
The markets are waiting for some good news on, and we all are on inflation. So this morning, inflation did tick down a little bit. It came out at 8.5. So that was good news. The markets loved it. The markets are rallying a little bit this morning or this afternoon. So that's good news. And the Fed wants to get it down to 2%. We're long ways from that. We're still at very high levels. Inflation, first quarter was concentrated really in exports, and now the second quarter became much more widespread. Good news is, travel and leisure and fuel prices came down in July. So anybody going on a trip, you get cheaper airfares now. But food's a big thing that went up, has been going up recently. We're all familiar with that. And housing is another one of the leading increases. This chart gives you an idea of interest rates. This is the Treasury market, kind of the benchmark for the fixed income world we invest in. And the bottom curve is where we started the year. As far as interest rates go for the Treasuries, you can see it pretty much pegged at 0 on the very short end of the left part of the chart. Then the green is the end of the first quarter. Interest rates jumped way up across the curve. And kind of the olive color, I guess, is the end of the second quarter. Another increase we saw this past quarter across the board, and then the blue is actually July. And relating this to the Fed, you can see on the very left, the 1-month rates just go up and up and up as the Fed increases interest rates. So that, they increased rates in March, May, June, July, and they say they're going to keep raising rates until inflation's down to their goal. So we can expect that to keep going up. Which the next meeting's in September. There's a debate between 50 and 75 basis points for their next hike. So yeah, we should see that directly affects our short-term portfolio in a good way. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The longer-term rates, our longer-term portfolio is really investing in that 2 to 10 year area. You can see rates have been going up the entire year, which will eventually be good, but as rates cycle up higher, it causes some negative price for the holdings we have, so we see some negative returns. But luckily, those for our bonds are paper losses only. GDP, you're probably all familiar with this. This is a chart of the last 2 years of the GDP measurement. You hear a lot of talk about recession. Are we in a recession? Are we not? The common definition is 2 quarters of negative GDP in a row, which we had. The last 2 quarters. So that's kind of the common definition. There's different ways to look at that. The Fed thinks we're not in a recession because our labor market's still strong. The common definition says we are. The politics can come into play on how you message that for some people, but the reality is that with high inflation, increasing interest rates, in the negative growth we're seeing, we're either in a recession or we're about to be, and the markets are waiting for good news on any of those measurements. And luckily this morning we got some. The labor market. This is an interesting one that's kind of wait and see in my mind. The left chart shows the number of jobs added each month. You can see kind of was a plateau for March, April, May, and June. The number of jobs added each month was a little over 400,000, and the employment rate was kind of stuck. Unemployment rate was kind of stuck also. So that made many people in the market think that the labor market was cooling off a little bit. Combine that with the right chart, which shows the number of people filing for unemployment claims, and that was going up. So that all changed again last Friday. We got some blowout employment numbers. We added 528,000 jobs. So kind of another switch, which was kind of unexpected for the market and made people wonder which way the labor market is really headed, and gave the Fed more ammunition to keep raising rates, really. So that's kind of a wait and see, as we're going to get a number of more economic releases on labor and growth before the next Fed meeting, so we'll see where they go. S&P 500 had a very tough quarter, as you know probably, that since about the peak in the beginning of the year, it's kind of been a steady decline with a few bumps along the way. The second quarter, the S&P was down 16%. It's luckily bounced up a little bit in July, bounced up again in August so far. And today was a little over 4,200, so we saw a good bounce today. So that affects our OPEB portfolio, where we have some we have an S&P 500 pool. We have some exposure to the stock market there, and I'll touch on that in a minute. So on to our portfolios, unless, do you want me to pause for any questions, Madam Chair, or you want to?
I think we can keep going unless anyone has any questions. Oh, go ahead.
This just shows our portfolio balances for the second quarter for the last 3 years. Really not much of a story to tell on this slide, but I'll talk about the balances of each one as we go through it. This gives some information on the short-term portfolio, and this is a portfolio we use to manage our cash flow. We we align the maturities in this portfolio for our big expenses, right, for our debt and for payroll, things like that. We manage this on a daily basis to make sure we have enough funds to pay our expenses. Very short term, it's a 0 to 6 month portfolio. It's got 976 million as of the end of the quarter. You can see how it's invested in treasury bills, discount notes, and money market fund. The allocation chart on the left is, you can see there's a little more pink and a little less purple, so which means we reallocated slightly, just chasing yield really, where we're looking at different securities based on their yield. So treasury bills, deals, actually discount notes from the US government agencies, we bought more of because their yield was better than T-bills. So, and on the right, total return, you can see we did outperform our benchmark, but the total returns were very little, very small, 0.17 for the quarter. The good news on the portfolio is, as you can see, it kind of flatlined at 0 there for pretty much the whole pandemic. And we're seeing some life the last 2 quarters where our average yield in the portfolio has gone up from, it was 0.29 at the end of last quarter, and it's 1.2 this second quarter. And I expect it to be over 2% next quarter. So our earnings are shooting up fast, which is great after so long without earnings. So I'll just quickly go to the next one is the long-term portfolio. Not a lot of activity. This is our longer-term reserves that we have set aside, 452 million. Allocation really didn't change. We're still invested in the same types of securities, very similar amounts. Not a lot of activity in this portfolio. We didn't have many maturities or bonds we were called out of, so it was pretty stagnant. We did outperform the benchmark by a slight bit again. Was negative because of the interest rate rise. We're short of our duration, so we're a little less sensitive to the interest rate increases because we're short of the benchmark. So that's why we probably outperformed a little bit. The average yield in the portfolio is 0.98, which is low compared to where interest rates are. But as we get maturities, we'll be reinvesting at higher rates, so that should start to go up. I will touch more on the CD program in a couple minutes. OPEB Trust, this is where we took a big hit, down 11.4% for the quarter. This is a trust we have that holds assets set aside for our OPEB liabilities, future OPEB liabilities. So it's a long-term investment. It goes out, our liabilities extend out 30-some years. You can see the balances of the trust value listed there, and the big hits we took in the first part of this year. As of this morning, it was up to about 330 million. It is invested in an S&P 500 index pool. That's what the 65% is. It's also invested in some fixed income securities. We own some treasuries and some agency bonds, and a small amount, 90 million or so in cash. The good news is, even with this market decline, we're still fully funded against our OPEB liabilities. We're monitoring it on a monthly basis, and even if the market goes down another 10%, we're still fully funded. So, we're in good shape still, and we try to keep in mind this is a long-term investment and keep watching it come back over time. I mentioned I would talk about the CD program. I know we've been working on this for a while now. This is kind of the current status. We've got 7 different CDs, or CDs with 7 different banks totaling 18.5 million. You can kind of see they're all 1 year or less. The reason I wanted to show you this is because we've been approved for 20 to 25 million, so we still have some room to go. And I think the CD program was set up during the pandemic, and we got things invested, but I think there's much room for improvement on how we're administrating this program and investing it. So I've developed some things I'm working on. I just want to let you know that they're coming, and I'm going to show you a list of things I'm working on. We're trying to make sure that we pick the right banks to invest with, and we get the right feedback from those banks. You know, we need to get some metrics around the goals of the CD program, and report back to this committee and the council on the progress. So we're trying to make some improvements. So we've got some marketing materials and application materials that banks fill out when they're interested in the program. We're gonna work to improve those and get the right questions on there so we can pick the right banks. There's questions around the financial stability of each bank. There's questions about their community involvement, things like that. And it really, I think there's a lot of improvements. I'm working on rewriting those. I've been out visiting some banks. I've listed a couple there, but there's more that I visited. Trying to get a feeling for what banks can provide us, right? So we're looking for metrics on the types of loans they're making around our goals of affordable housing and, you know, supporting small businesses, minority-owned small businesses, veteran-owned, all those categories. And we're not getting the feedback we need at this point, so I'm out talking to these banks and saying, what can you give us? You know, the goal is for us to develop this program, we need to be more demanding. But I want to make sure that they can provide what we're looking for. So each bank is different. You know, some banks are more retail oriented, some are more small business oriented. So we're trying to figure out the right metrics to ask them and if they can fulfill for us.
And Mark,
So,
I'm
yeah.
glad you're looking at new additional banks to potentially bring in, and really glad you're looking at First Independence Bank.
Yep.
You know, because they're historic in this marketplace and working to do great things, so hopefully we can, you know, again, invest in places where it will be then invested back into community.
Right.
That'd be great. So yeah, I'd like to just keep track of how it's going with some of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, these are some things we're working on. We're trying to administrate it different too. Setting it mentions on here an annual reporting date where everybody's information will be due back to us. We're trying to come up with a minimum set of metrics. You know, it's like I said, each bank's different. So if we come up, you know, what are the minimum requirements to be a part of our program? What are the minimum reporting requirements? Those are the kind of things we need to iron out. And standardize the CD size. I mean, we have a variety of different bank sizes. I mean, should we have the same size CD with a $5 billion bank as a $100 million bank? I mean, we need to, I think there's improvements on how we decide how much to give each bank. Like I said, aligning the maturity dates so we can administer it all at once, pick the right banks to renew, things like that. And it's all around making sure we're picking the right banks and we're getting the feedback we need to the council and the management committee. So I just want to let you know this is coming. You know, a lot of it's underway, and hopefully you'll see some more reporting back on the program, and we'll get it filled up with the right banks.
Great. We've got that's it. So,
That's it for me. Thank you.
yep, thank you. Is there any questions from the committee? Councilmember Lilligren?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Chums, thanks for the work and for the report, and I'm really especially interested in the sort of, I don't know, this isn't your word, but the more granular approach towards some of these banks and really starting to differentiate big banks, small banks, and you know, I look at the range of the size of our CD investments, and they're not huge, they're not gonna make or break a bank, but for a smaller community level bank, it can really make a difference to have, you know, to have this kind of partnership. And so I have a question, and then I think a comment after that, but you talked about you're trying to establish the right metrics for evaluating all of these different banks. You talked about community involvement, you specifically listed out volunteering, which is great, and then you talked about things like housing investment, small business investment, and things like that. And I think, so here I'm getting to my question, which is, you said they don't all, they can't report that way. It seems like they're probably not tracking their own data that way or something, or they don't report out that way. So I'm just wondering how it's going out in the field as we start to get a little more specific about what we're kind of looking for in reporting from these banks.
Sure.
Because I think there's an opportunity to influence the system to change. That's all.
Yeah. Madam Chair, council members, on your first comment, it's interesting as I've had coffee with a couple of these banks. I've heard multiple times, don't underestimate your importance. They want our deposits, they want to be a client of ours, so that's good. The metrics are, I get a variety of responses. You know, I said, you know, I asked a simple question, you know, do you track how many loans you give to women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses, or, you know, what are you doing for serving the unbanked? And I get responses like, oh, we don't track that, or yes, we do track that. I mean, it's like, you think everybody's tracking that data, they have to have it. So I think it's up to us to say, you provide this or we're gonna have to go somewhere else. I think that's where we're headed. But I wanna be fair and say, you know, each bank's different. Are you what types of loans are you tracking? What types of programs do you have? I mean, part of their application process is to tell us, you know, what do you concentrate on? What's your business? What types of loans are you sending or giving out? You know, what type of programs are you supporting? So I give them the opportunity to give a narrative. You know, we do this, this, and this for these types of businesses. But we need to kind of quantify it better, I think. And I've talked to banks who are, you know, really wanting to support and working hard, like First Independence is working hard and serving the unbanked, the minority community, and they're working on mortgages for underserved communities. And, you know, that's totally different than like 21st Century Bank is a very business-oriented bank with small businesses. And there's just different metrics for each, right? So it's interesting, and I need to define how we compare these different banks when they're doing different things and picking the right ones. And so I think we need a minimum set of metrics. I'm not sure what they are yet, but give them the opportunity to show, and then as we renew them, we need a process to say, are they improving, or are they still doing this, or have they changed compared to other banks? But
Thank you.
a lot of questions I don't have the answers to.
Well, I'm glad that we're asking them though, and you know, I'll just say and not to start a whole different conversation here, but as we look at things like how Met Council on Investment is impacting the affordable housing market, for example. Well, here's a way that it's not directly investment in housing, but we can have an impact by asking the right questions and making the right requirements for the banking partners that we have, so thanks.
And Councilmember Pacheco, and you chair the investment review committee. So maybe you've already gotten this, I think it goes to you, then it comes to us, I don't know, I used to be on it.
Sorry, I could have mentioned that, Madam
No,
Chair.
and Councilmember Gonzalez serves on it as well, but Councilmember Pacheco.
This was outside of that, maybe I didn't think of it yesterday, because that, it's kind of, there's more time to process it, but. So do we invest or provide, a relationship to community development finance institution? I'm looking like a Latino Economic Development Center or MEDA, or any of those organizations that do provide loans into small business.
No, Madam Chair, council members, we're governed by statute on what we can invest in, and it's very specific and it's very limited. And CDs are an approved investment, but I'm not sure if you're talking CDs or you're talking
CDFIs, right? Community Development Finance Institutes, like nonprofit banks, right?
Well, they provide loans, but as, for example, I think when I was at US Bank, we would give them, you know, a couple $1 million, we would get a percentage, they would provide loans and get their percentage, and then we just kind of roll it again. XL was doing the same thing, and so it's not necessarily just the banking entities, but again, some of the others that are investing in communities.
Yeah, I don't think statute would allow us to do that. I can look into it.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get to. All right, any other questions? Thank you very much. Oh, no, okay, thank you, Mark, great work.
Thank you.
Appreciate the good news. I think you're doing great work, so thank you. And then one more item today, it's the 2022 second quarter procurement summary and MCUP goal reviews. And we've got Jody and Ashanti that are here with us today, so thank you. And Ashanti, thanks for sending that information out from our last meeting that we had, appreciated that as a follow-up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Jody Jacoby, and I'm the Director of the Procurement Department, here with my partner, Ashanti Payne, and Cy Jordan in the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. to present the second quarter procurement summary for 2022. The council's expenditure policy for goods and services authorized the regional administrator to approve awards not exceeding $500,000 for goods and services, and for construction awards up to $2.5 million. This report includes a breakdown that's grouped by value and also by procurement type. It includes MCUB utilization, and then after I deliver the procurement summary, I'll transition to Ashanti, who will discuss the specifics with the MCUB utilization. I'll turn your attention to the second page of the report, which has the procurement summary information. And so just looking at this in detail, this quarter, the cumulative spend was almost $81.5 million. And then year to date, almost $209 million. And with that value, there were 9,513 individual procurement events. And those could take the form of a P-card transaction, a purchasing card, a purchase order, maybe a request for quote, a request for proposal, a construction contract. Really a lot of work in those numbers. And looking back to last year's data, this quarter, we had 600 more individual purchasing events this year than last year. However, our value was a lot less. In fact, it was $290 million less this year. And I looked at that data to see if there were any really large specific contracts that represented that shift. And it was really all over with some rolling stock procurements, software, construction, and then some contracted service for metro mobility. So interesting data. We've also been tracking the number of contracts that we execute by quarter in our service level agreements. And normally the average is around 130 contracts, but this quarter we had 233. So a lot more work this quarter. Some positive trends this quarter that I'm really excited to talk about, and it's definitely not just an initiative of procurement, it's OEEO and our business unit partners, is we're seeing some consistent and quantifiable change with MCUB awards. The MCUB Direct program, and that is where there is no competitive process to go to award. You have that ability, again, to just select an MCUB vendor up to $25,000 and get a purchase order issued. We're consistently seeing 15% award to MCUB vendors. And our purchasing manager is really doing a great job just watching the trends, looking at what vendors are available, making that connections with our business partners to learn and adapt with who's available, where are some areas we can do a better job training, but 15% consistently. So that's really positive news. Additionally, this quarter we had 17 state contracts that also represented MCUB vendors and 4 sole sources that were to MCUB vendors. So it may seem just like some numbers, but it really says to me we're seeing some really good change management happening within the council and some really good results that we're seeing replicated each quarter. Additionally, there was 4 emergency declarations that were made to MCUB vendors, and I don't think that's ever happened before. So seeing some positive changes made. Additionally, some of the projects that procurement staff led this quarter is we released a forecasted contracted opportunities page, because what we're hearing from our supplier community is they want to know what projects are coming up. And there is some information definitely we can't give them, but we can do a better job about being transparent. With all the labor shortages, there's a significant amount of public work happening right now. our supplier community is being very selective about where they spend their time preparing bids and proposals for the council. And so that was released in June, and we're excited to watch that. We're excited to push that out to some of our suppliers and their associations so we can get more interest in council projects. We're also really increasing our advertisements and our just awareness of council projects. We've partnered with professional associations, the Association of General Contractors, the Association of Minority Contractors, and the ACEC, which is the Architectural and Engineering Associations, that when we have projects, we're pushing them to their staff, and they're actually posting them on their webpage and sending them directly to their members. We are also adding more detail in our advertisements to just help our consultant community and our contractors better understand what are some of the milestones and the timeframes to make it more attractive to bid on our projects. And then we're also tracking the number of hits, individual unique hits, to our Doing Business webpage. And it's interesting with some of these initiatives that we've implemented to see more clicks. And on average, we have about 2,800 clicks a month. And the highest was in March, and we suspect it was because of the Gold Line construction project that we advertised, where we had almost 3,400 individual clicks on our projects. One other initiative we implemented is we added a new section to our service level agreements to measure customer satisfaction. And we had almost 200 responses from internal council employees. And it focused around the themes of communication, transparency of timelines, training, and systems. And overall, the feedback was very positive, but also created an opportunity to promote engagement of our staff and really show up more of it as a thought leader than just transactional, which is really a different hat that we're trying to wear in procurement. And so a good start, a lot of work, staff are doing a great job. And I'll be happy to answer any questions now, or we can hold them to the end and I'll transition to Ashanti.
If you don't mind, let's just continue on and then we'll come back with questions.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Council and Committee members. Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director of the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. And I'm here to talk about our MCUB utilization report for Q2 2022. For Q2, we did not hit our construction goal of 14% or our goods and services goal of 10%. It definitely garners our attention for construction, given that this is 2 quarters in a row, which has never happened in my 2.5 years at the council. So it's something that we definitely pay attention to. However, we have had quarters where we've had 50% participation, and we have, by the end of the year, normally met our construction goal. The other thing is we always compare quarters from this year to the same quarter last year, and we did increase our spend on goods with MCUB businesses. However, it was not commensurate with the increase in spend on goods overall. And then we also in this quarter have a better distribution across gender and racial categories in terms of our spend, and saw increases for both Black-owned businesses and Hispanic-owned businesses for this quarter. Some of the things that definitely highlight, Jody talked about a lot of them. I definitely do not want to downplay the emergency contracts and sole source. That is definitely an area where we want to focus as part of our efforts. And also just had a contract where the apparent low bidder was an MCUB for an HVAC project. And I think the event that we did last winter, just in terms of the outreach that we had with both Metro Transit and ES for MCUB HVAC vendors played a role in them being the awarded, well, not awarded yet, but apparent low bidder on a project. Also, another good news to report is we did finalize the agreement between New Flyer and an MCUB distributor for New Flyer parts. That is an area where we have historically not got had zero MCUB participation, and we consider that a very big win in that relationship as it moves forward. And then also the outreach event that we did with IS procurement in OEEO. We had 40-some individuals, IT professionals, attend that outreach event. Very positive. We're trying a different approach with this IS project where we did not set an MCUB goal. However, we do have an MCUB target of 25% that we are confident that we will be able to achieve through this new piloted process that we're piloting with IS. With that, I will pause and we will pause and answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Barber, and then Lily Brent.
Thank you. I have a couple. So first, kudos on New Flyer. I know that's a big deal. It's been something I've definitely been working on for a long time. I mean, those are big contracts, and that's a big deal. So I think that's fantastic. One question I had on the forecasted contracting opportunities, you go to the webpage. How have we got that information out to people that you can go find this? Like, how are we? Like, what's our outreach for this?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Barber. So we had a couple different approaches to pushing this out. One was working with the professional associations, especially the ACEC, which is engineers and architects, as you're aware, and the Association of General Contractors. And then we also worked with communications, and they developed a short piece, and it was pushed out to all of our vendors who are registered to receive notifications about console contracting opportunities.
Okay, I think this might be something that's just like how we push the bounds on some of these other things, is, you know, people who may not even think to look at our stuff, you know, might be a way to get some word out. And so I'd encourage you to continue to look at how to outreach and get the message out there, because those are far enough down the road that people would have time to get informed on what they really need to do, whether it is getting certified or whatever it is. So I would encourage that. And then my last question was for the MCUB on the levels for construction. Was some of our construction hold that we have had over the last few months part of the problem and why we're seeing this 2 quarters in a row?
Chair, Councilmember Barber, that is definitely one thing I had our team take a look at. And one of the things that we did find was that there were 13 unique payments to project, or 13 unique projects that received payments during this reporting period. And 12 of them were from from Environmental Services, and 9 of them were, or 9 of the 12 were either in the beginning stages of the project, like less than 25%, or more than 75%. And we know historically that MCUBs normally are not in that mobilization phase, and they're not normally in that end phase. That's one thing that we think can contribute to that. I think the bigger thing that we're focusing in on is our ability to improve our reporting process. Right now, we only have the ability to report on payments to MCUBs. So we are working on a solution to propose. So it is important to be able to report on both commitments and awards, because empirically, I can see that we're doing good things. Jody mentioned a lot of them. We can see that, but I can't prove it and show it to you.
It's just not showing in the data yet.
Right now,
Right.
but we are working on proposing something that will accomplish that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Whitlicker.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks for the report and for the work. This is always really exciting to hear. And one of the things that really interests me is kind of the unexpected successes, right? And especially in an era when we're challenged to meet our established goals. And so you both referenced these kind of unexpected results with an emergency contracts. I'm just wondering if either of you can kind of either speculate or if you know why in that specific area we seem to perform better, or at least we performed, yeah.
I would speculate that it's the combined efforts in terms of having those conversations with business units. And I know Jody's staff has conversations, they have those direct conversations in terms of, are there MCUBs that you can utilize for this opportunity? And being intentional about utilizing MCUBs in those situations.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Councilmember, I would concur. I think it is about that intentionality, and the tone is set from the general managers and the leaders, and that data is being reviewed frequently with the expectations set that we're going to have an equitable contract. And so I really feel the business process is changing.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for this great report. Really appreciate the time you're putting in and having these regular reports. It's a very good thing, so thank you. And with that, I think we have come to the end of our agenda, so if there is no other business to come before this committee, without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.